Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you, and welcome to today's true crime episode. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this that we're forced to deal with on the day today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing the murder of a 33-year-old pregnant woman named Kassanndra Cantrell. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. Now, before we get into the details of today's case, I first need to say a big thank you to the sponsor of today's video, and that is Dossier. Dossier is a fragrance company, and for the longest time you've heard me tell you all about how they create perfumes that rival luxury brands, but at a fraction of the price. Where most luxury perfumes can cost anywhere from $50 to hundreds of dollars, Dossier's perfumes cost anywhere from $29 to $49, and they have lots of different deals that you can get even more discounts, like discounts when you put in bulk orders or free shipping when you get 3 or more bottles. There's lots of different ways for you to save money when shopping through Dossier. Well, did you know? Were you aware? I'm sure you were. If you've been here before, you probably are, but I don't talk about it nearly enough. The Dossier has branched out into other areas of the scent market, and one of these areas that they've branched out to is candles, and these candles are scented, they smell, they're fragranced similarly too. They're inspired by some of their most popular selling perfumes. With that said, I got this big old guy to show with you today. I was going to say share with you, but you can't really smell it. I don't know why we're not there with technology. Like, why do we not yet have smell-o-vision? Couldn't say. But this is their candle in the scent Floral Marshmallow, which is inspired by their perfume in the scent Floral Marshmallow, which was originally inspired by the Killian's Don't Be Shy perfume, which I've never smelled that, but from what I've heard from other people who have, they're very, very, very similar because it's inspired by it, and it's like, ooh, dang, one second. I don't know why I'm acting surprised by how wonderful this smells, because if you've been here, you know I've gotten this one before. I have this perfume and I've gotten this candle before because, listen, I like to get perfumes that smell the same as the candles I get, or vice versa. I guess would make more sense. I like to get candles that smell like my perfume. Though, if I'm honest, I was going to say I burn candles more than I wear perfume, but I do wear perfume like almost every day, so I guess that's not true. I'm just like a real big candle girly, you know what I mean? And sometimes I get the feminine urge to have my body smell like my home, or vice versa, so that when I actually do leave the house, if I leave the house, I can take home with me. So that's great, right? It's been a great time for me. Dossier has been giving me great time smelling great, which I was going to say is the best part, but really what the best part is for me is that they are a cruelty-free fragrance brand. That is something that aligns very much with my soul, and if you know, most luxury brands just simply are not cruelty-free. Not even just with like the scent market, just luxury brands as a whole are mostly not cruelty-free, which is a bummer, man. It really is, but you don't have to sacrifice luxury with companies like Dossier, because this is just as good, fraction of the price, and cruelty-free. Anyways, I'm telling you all of this, of course, because I have great news, and that is that Dossier is offering members of the Brat Pack a discount when you use my code, which is Bratterstein, at checkout. The code is active for a limited time, and they're already such a good deal that when you put this coupon code on top of it, like, I can't imagine you're going to find a better deal out there. So make sure to click the link in my description box and use the code Bratterstein at checkout to make sure they know that I'm the one that sent you, and get 10% off your favorite new perfume or candle today. And now I just want to say a big thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on today's video. It's partners like Dossier that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all of my sponsors. You rock, don't ever change. Alright, with all of that said, let's go ahead and get into this video. So this video is on a case that I have heard about before. I know, shocking. But this is a case that I heard about back in 2020 when it was developing, and it's a case that I actually did want to talk about then, but I didn't feel like I had enough information, and I wanted to wait for a trial, or at least for more information to come out, and then, you know, time marched on, more cases came out. That's the sad thing about talking about these cases, is that there is a never-ending supply, because there's so many just evil people out in the world who hurt other people. But I felt like now was the time. I wanted to talk about Kassanndra. I've wanted to for a while, and I especially wanted to talk about her, sheesh. I want to talk about her because this case was also recommended to me by a member of the Brat Pack, a longtime member of the Brat Pack, who I've seen in the comments from like probably day one, named Melissa. Hi Melissa, thank you Melissa. Now this case is incredibly tragic. It's a story of hope and optimism, and it was those things that led Kassanndra into a situation that she thought would be safe. She had no idea was going to be dangerous for her. She was at a point in her life where she was making plans. She was making plans for herself and for her future as a mother, and she was just excited. She had thought that this portion of her life, like this chapter, had passed her by and that it wasn't going to be something that she'd be able to do, but now she was, and she was very excited about her future. She was just really excited to see where life was taking her, but unfortunately, some absolute dickbag murdered her and made it so she'd never get to see this future, and she'd never even get to meet her unborn baby. So today I'm going to tell you the entire story. I read all the things so that you do not have to, and at the end of this video I'm going to ask you the question of the day. I'm going to give it to you now so you can have it kicking around in your brain as we go through the details of this case, but of course I want you to answer once you have something to go on. But the question today is this: do you believe that Kassandra's killer was given the proper sentence? Do you think that they were given enough time considering what they did and just how premeditated it was? And I'm curious about your opinion on the family's wishes, Kassandra's family's wishes, being honored when it came to her killer's punishment. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below after we go through the details of this case. Now, with all of that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of the murder of Kassanndra Cantrell. I want to start this video off with a quote. It's a quote that came out after Kassanndra was killed, and I just thought that it was beautiful and a good way to start this video and a good way to get into who Kassanndra was to the people who loved her. All that we see or seem is but a dream within a dream. Kassanndra Marie Cantrell was a beautiful dream. As with dreams, she held a magic that infused the space around her, always changing things and people for the better. She was one of the 6 impossible things you could believe before breakfast, and she was magnificent. Kassanndra Marie Cantrell was one of 2 babies born on May 25, 1987. Her and her twin brother Robert were born to parents Marie and Jeff, and they were born in Agana Heights, which is in the United States territory of Guam. Growing up, Kassanndra was the type of child who was filled with imagination. Her family said that she would often blur the lines of reality and dreams because of her endless creativity. She was also said to be just extremely curious. Described as, quote, endlessly inquisitive, she was the type of kid and later the type of woman who could always find interesting things to do because this curiosity in her knew bounds. Which this mentality and this way of life makes a lot of sense for Kassanndra based on everything that I read, and it made it so that a tattoo that she went on to get later in life made a lot of sense for her, and the tattoo was words that said, quote, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." And this tattoo that really summed up who Kassanndra was also the thing that helped police later identify her body. And it's such a shame, man, because Kassanndra really sounded to me like the type of person, just like a great person, the type of person who was unapologetically herself, somebody who didn't care if you liked her, she didn't care if you thought she was too loud or you thought she took up too much space. She was confident in who she was and unshakable. Her family said that she was, quote, braver than she believed, stronger than she seemed, and smarter than she thought. She knew that it is a happiness to wonder. It is a happiness to dream. As a girl, Kassanndra liked to stay up late playing What If with her brother or watching movies. Her and her brother were very big on watching horror movies, and they would stay up all night, or not all night, but late into the night watching them, and Kassanndra was never scared. Her and her brother were very close. They were said to be inseparable as kids, which makes sense because they were twins, and that seems like what twins do be doing from all that I have seen and read in my life. And as adults, they weren't just siblings, they were still close friends. They were both into horror and cinema and collecting movie memorabilia, and they had a shared dream of one day opening up a collectible shop together. Kassanndra loved scary stories and weird things, but in a good way. She was herself strange and unusual, and she loved dark things and vintage things and gothic things, particularly with her style. She liked things that were dark and things that were retro. She loved to get lost in her own mind or in another world, whether it be from reading books or movies. And from what I've seen, from what people have said, and also from her Facebook page, she seemed to have very good taste in movies. She liked things like The Craft and Reservoir Dogs, Back to the Future, Halloween, It, but the original with Tim Curry, Deadpool, Harry Potter, Pet Sematary. And I saw on her Facebook page that she had actually met Miko Hughes, which is the kid from Pet Sematary, if you've seen it, like the creepy little kid, the demon baby. That kid was played by Miko Hughes. And fun fact for you, Miko Hughes was actually from my hometown, and I used to see him from time to time at the bar. The Bears. I used to see him at the bar because he was from my hometown. Now you know. Now, Kassanndra liked films, as I've said, so it made sense that she would go on to sort of be kind of like an aspiring YouTuber. She would sit in her room, the room in the house that she shared with her mom. Her mom said that they were super close, and throughout her years, she just never really moved out. But anyways, she liked to film videos, and in particular, she liked to film haul videos. So she would go out and she would go shopping, and she'd find all kinds of things on like super sale, and then she would come and she would show you what she got and tell you how much she paid for it. And I tried to find her YouTube channel because I kind of like, when I'm doing research, I like to see these people in their life as much as I possibly can in like the least invasive way possible, which is like a fine line to walk, of course, but I wanted to find it so I could see her and see the way she moved and the way she talked and the way she got excited about things, but I wasn't able to find her YouTube channel. But from what I was able to find out, it seemed that she would do hauls on things from like clothes for herself to like physical media hauls, which you know, or maybe you don't know, that's like what I'm really into right now is physical media. And she would get little clothes, even little hauls of little clothes and things for her puppy Ruby, who she loved. And in addition to the YouTube thing, another thing that made sense, and she was so into like film and cinema, is that she was a bit of a drama kid. She loved being on stage, and she even joined this local group, like a local group in her area, that did shadow casting for the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which, if you don't know what that is, 1, you are severely missing out. And 2, what that basically is like this group of people will put on a show. The one that I used to go to when I was younger was at midnight in Oceanside, California. And basically it's like in a theater and they put on a movie, in this case, Rocky Horror Picture Show. And shadow casting is when you get on stage. So the movie's shown in kind of more like a theater setting, not like a movie theater, but the one that has a stage. So the movie's on in the background, and on the stage in front of the movie is people dressed up as the characters acting out the movie at the same time that the movie is playing. It's a thing that just stuck out to me and a thing that resonated with me because growing up, this is what my family was into. My mom and all of her friends growing up are really into Rocky Horror Picture Show. Some of them even did shadow casting, and one of the last times that I went to a shadow casting show, my mom and her boyfriend at the time got up and played 2 characters during the show. So it's something that I have seen quite a few times. Like, for example, if you've been, you would know this, but they do this thing because it's like an interactive show. So they'll have everybody stand up, and then they'll be like, okay, whoever's seen Rocky Horror Picture Show in theater, 5 times sit down, 10 times sit down, and people start sitting down. And then let's just say I was standing up there for like a while because I've seen it quite a few times. But all of this is to say is that this is like a very fun thing to do. It's a culty movie, so a lot of the people who are in this and do this type of thing are just like fun people. They're lively and energetic, usually weird, but in a good way. I'm not at all biased here, but that's what Kassanndra did. So it lets me know that she was a fun person, because generally speaking, people who do this, in my experience, are fun people because it's a fun thing to do. I actually wanted to be a shadowcaster for a long time. I wanted to play Magenta, but I have horrifying stage fright, so it wasn't in my future. But Kassanndra, she played Janet Weiss, which is one of the main characters, and she also learned the part of Columbia, so if they ever needed her to like cover for somebody, she could do that as well. And I just found reading this part about her enlightening, because it kind of lets me know a lot about who she was as a person, and it rounds out just who she is to me. Obviously, I don't know her, and she's more than that, but reading everything else they said about her, I'm like, I can see the type of person this was and the type of person that her family and friends lost. She was a happy person. That was clear. She was a light for people. She was 33 years old and loving her life with no reason to leave, so that's what made her disappearance on that morning all the more alarming for her mother. August 25th, 2020 started as a totally normal day. Marie was up getting ready for the day. She saw Kassanndra, because remember, Kassanndra lived in the home. She had never really left home. So the two had an exchange. Kassanndra told Marie that she loved her, and Marie told her that she loved her too. And this would be the last time she would speak to her daughter. Marie left the house that day, and when she returned at the end of the day, Kassanndra was gone. But it wasn't like a weird sight. The house wasn't in disarray. It wasn't in bad order. It didn't seem like anything happened to her. It actually looked like she got ready and left voluntarily. Like, you know, her stuff was in the bathroom, her makeup, her hair stuff was in the bathroom. So it looked like she just got herself ready and left that day for a scheduled shopping day. Like her mom knew she planned to go shopping. She just never came back. Now, Marie thought this was a little weird, but not like overly so. You know, Kassanndra is an adult. She is known to like go out and do things. She doesn't have to come back if she doesn't want to. And Marie knew that Kassanndra had plans the following day to go out with her best friend, Alexandra. So she just assumed that, you know, maybe she was staying with her friend and then she would see Kassanndra when she came home after hanging out with Alexandra the next day. But here's the thing. The next day, Kassanndra didn't show up for her hangout with Alexandra either. The two were scheduled to hang out at a certain time, and Kassanndra was late. So Alexandra, you know, called her, texted her, was like, what's up? What's going on? Where are you at? But she got no response, and she thought that this was weird. So she called her over and over. She texted her over and over. She left voicemail after voicemail until Kassandra's voicemail was completely full, and she knew that this was weird. Right away, she knew something was wrong because it was completely unlike Kassanndra to just bail on her and not say anything. It was just simply not something she would do. The next day, Alexandra had gotten to a point where she was just too freaked out by the entire thing not to say something. She was like, too much time's gone by. I literally still can't get a hold of her. I can't do this anymore. So she finally reached out to Marie. She's like, hey, you know, is Kassanndra there? Did she stay, you know, with you? I was supposed to hang out with her, etc, etc. Do you know what's up? And this is when Marie's heart dropped because she was like, what are you talking about? Like, I thought she had been with you this whole time. Immediately, she was super worried because she had started to put things together and she realized not only had neither of them talked to her, but also Kassanndra had not been on social media at all. And this was super weird. So they start calling Kassanndra over and over. She calls her over and over. Her brother Rob calls her over and over. And even after they know that something is wrong, they continue calling just so that they can see if anybody else ever answers or if her phone ever just turns off. So anyways, the day that Alexandra called Marie and told her that she hadn't heard from Kassanndra is the day that Marie reported her daughter missing. And initially, police weren't taking it too seriously. They figured that Kassandra's missing person case would turn out like the majority of other missing person cases for like young adults. And that's that in a matter of time, she would come back and there would be a perfectly reasonable explanation as to where she had been. But, I mean, you and I are talking about Kassanndra today, so we know that that's not the case. Her mom was in a panic, calling every person she could think of to try to figure out where her daughter could have gone, but no one had heard from her. And each minute that went by was agony for her mother because she was really holding out hope that Kassanndra may be alive out there. And she said of this quote, "Every sound I imagine that I hear her or a door. When I doze, I have these little snippets of dreams, and for a second I think everything is okay, that everything got fixed. But then I wake up and I realize that was a dream. Being awake is the nightmare. All I want to do is dream, but I can't sleep." She was just at a loss, man. She never thought she'd be the type of person dealing with having a missing or murdered child, but here she was, and she was dealing with it the best she could. And she did have a little bit of a support system. She did have some friends, and she also had her one remaining child, Kassandra's twin brother, Rob. He was there for his mom, but he said he was also dealing with his own grief and honestly a little bit of guilt. Like, he was dealing with a little bit of guilt over the last conversation he had with his sister because it wasn't like a positive conversation. Apparently, she had wanted to hang out with him and she wanted him specifically to come over on the 25th. But when she called, he didn't answer. He just kind of avoided her. And he regretted this so much because, I mean, that's the day that she disappeared. And he's like, if I had just talked to her, or if I had hung out with her, maybe it would be different, or I could know where she had been going, and maybe we would have just had answers sooner. So in addition to having Rob, Marie also had a close friend of hers named Christy who was there for her. But it was difficult for her too because she could just see like the agony that Marie was in. But the two of them together tried to sit there and think of scenarios. Scenarios that were plausible, that would put Kassanndra in a situation where she was alive and okay, but unable to contact anyone. So they were like, maybe she lost her phone, maybe she didn't have her car. Like, what could make sense here to sort of ease Marie's mind? Her mom was just sort of like holding out hope that they'd be able to find her. And mostly, like, one of the first things she was holding out hope for was that they'd be able to find out where she was based on video cameras. She was like, listen, I know this world is so incredibly wired. Everyone has cameras, from businesses to like personal homes, you know, Ring cameras, all that shit. And she was like, there has to be something that we could see that should show either what happened to her or where she could have gone, something. And she was right, because police were trying to get surveillance footage. They canvassed the area to try to go to any house to see if anybody had cameras, nearby homes, neighbors, close by businesses, all that jazz. And they did. They collected a bunch of footage. They had like 72 hours of footage to comb through, and it was successful because they were able to find video footage of Kassandra's white car. Her Mazda was caught on a neighbor's surveillance video leaving her home the morning of August 25th, driving away from the neighborhood at around 8:30 a.m., but never coming back. And when this was kind of brought up, her friends thought maybe she was going grocery shopping that day or something. But she didn't have any money on her, and her EBT card had not been used. So her car was gone, and it would take police days before they figured out where it had gone. It was 3 days after Kassanndra went missing that her car was recovered. It was just like parked, abandoned on the side of a road with the keys still inside. It was parked sort of like beneath a bridge, not a bridge, but an overpass of Interstate 705, which is the freeway that goes to downtown Tacoma. And it was parked near the Tacoma Dome along East 25th Street, and in an area where there were a lot of tents and unhoused people, just like a lot of potential witnesses who might have seen something. It was at the point that they found her car that police started to take her case more seriously, because it was starting to look more serious. Kassanndra was a normal girl, a responsible girl, somebody close with her family, somebody who reached out and stayed in contact with the people she loved, which, I mean, they already knew that because her family told them that. But you take that and you combine it with the fact that her car is found abandoned in this way, and it just made them look at the whole situation through a different lens. So with this information in mind and them taking the case a little bit more seriously, the detective that was handling the case ordered an emergency trace to be put on Kassandra's cell phone to try to find the last location she might have been. And in doing it, they found that her phone had last pinged about 2 miles south of a tower on Vashon Island in the Puget Sound, which is a body of water that's like 100 miles long, which I had never heard of, but now I know quite a bit about. So one of the first things he did once he saw where that phone had pinged was he got on Google Maps to see what was around, and he saw water. It was like there was water everywhere. It was pinging near Owens Beach and Point Defiance Park, which again did not look good, but it at least gave them an idea of where to start, because before that they're looking at this giant body of water with all of these beaches where it could have been anywhere, and now they at least had an idea of like what beaches she was near so they could figure out where to look, because they're assuming at this point that her phone, at least, and maybe more of her items, maybe even they didn't say this, but I'm assuming they're thinking even she could have been dumped in this water, and they wanted to see what they could find, even though they knew looking in this water would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. But they were going to try, so a group was put together that included the Pierce County Metro Dive Team, and they headed to that beach to get searching. They did get lucky that day too, because the day they went to search, the tides were extremely low, which made visibility and like the overall search was an easier experience. And there was also like less area to try and search because of the tides. They also tried to like limit their search area, or at least get a realistic starting point, by standing on the beach and throwing rocks into the water to kind of see, which this seemed like a weird way to do it, but this also isn't my job. But they threw rocks into the water to kind of see how far somebody could realistically throw a phone so that they could kind of make a perimeter around that, search that area, and if that was unsuccessful, then start branching out further. So everyone out there threw on or snapped on. They put on snorkels. I've never used a snorkel. I don't know how it works. They put on a snorkel, they got in the water, face down, in a line, and just started searching for Kassandra's glittery cell phone. And somehow, because it was in a glitter case. Okay, girls, that's what we do. Is my phone glittery? I think my phone case is glittery. One second. My phone case is glittery as well, so I get it. Girl stuff. They go in the water, and somehow they get so lucky, because after being in the water for just an hour, somebody saw something glittering at the bottom of the water, like on the floor. It wasn't an ocean, it's like a lake, right? On the floor of the lake amongst the overgrowth and all that shit, because you see photos of this. There's photos online because somebody had like a camera. You can see a glittery thing, and it is Kassandra's phone. With that, her cell phone was recovered, and it was sent to a specialist to see if they could get anything off of the phone. And it turns out that all of this was actually for naught, because they ended up having a strong enough case that they didn't even need what was on her phone anyway. And I never even saw if it was possible for them to recover it, but I get a suspicion that they weren't able to. So I feel like if they could, that even if they had a strong case, they would have tried to. But they said, like, our case was so strong in the end that we didn't even need this. But police were taking Kassandra's case much more seriously by this point, obviously, with the water searches. They were considering her case to be a homicide. Like, they were hoping she would come back. That was the best case scenario, but with each piece of evidence they found, it was getting less and less likely. Despite this, though, Kassandra's family and friends still helped organize searches at different places like Defiance Park, which was near where her phone had last pinged, to try to just find anything that could be useful. They handed out flyers and made posters with photos of Kassanndra and her description, and she was described as a white woman who stood at 5'7" tall, weighed about 180 pounds, and had brown hair and blue eyes. Kassandra's mother was worried because she just didn't think Kassanndra would leave on her own. And she was like, listen, even if she would leave on her own, which she wouldn't, but even if she would, she wouldn't leave without her dogs. Those dogs were her babies, so she just knew that something horrible had happened. And she had even made a statement to whomever may have her daughter where she said, quote, if somebody has her, please, please let her go. All I want is for her to come home. And if anyone has seen her, please call the police. And in the meantime, they were out there doing these searches, like going through all of this like wooded area, knowing full well what they could be looking for, but trying to put that out of their minds and framing it as if they were just searching for clues. And they were just hoping that maybe she was stuck somewhere and needed help. But her mom also couldn't help going through like the worst case scenarios, like her being, carjacked or kidnapped. And her family really was relying on the kindness of strangers, and her mom was so thankful for this, but also so scared that as time went by and the media stopped reporting on her case as much and stopped getting as much attention in that way, that people would just kind of forget about her. But until then, these volunteers and her family did these searches, and they searched specifically in this park, but her mom didn't believe she was ever there. Like, she never believed she went there voluntarily. She said sometimes Kassanndra would go to this park to watch her dogs, but I mean, she left the dogs at home, so she definitely wasn't there with the dogs. And she had no other reason to be there. And same with where her car was, actually. She said she had no reason. There was no reason for her daughter's car to be there. And it just wasn't a safe area, and it wasn't a place that Kassanndra would go. So all of these clues were leading them to places that she wouldn't have gone herself. And it seems like she may be right, because you remember how Kassandra's car was found parked near the Tacoma Dome, and it was seen on surveillance video that it was there. Well, on the surveillance video, they were also able to see something else in that area. In this video, they see somebody walking away from Kassandra's car, but it doesn't look like it is Kassanndra. It looks to be a man, and he's dressed in all black, like black shirt, black pants, black shoes, a black hat that looks like a cowboy hat or like a fedora, and that's all fine and well. I mean, it's not fine and well, but they could think that was fine and well, except for this person was also wearing these bluish purple latex gloves and carrying a black bag. The person walks away from the car, crosses the street, sits for a second, then simply walks away. Now, though it's clear from the footage that the person in the video is trying to hide their face, police have an idea who this may be, because they have been speaking to people in Kassandra's life, her friends, her family, seeing what men may have been in Kassandra's life and who may want her gone. And the person in this video, their stature, though you couldn't see their face, their stature looks very similar to this person that was coming up when police were doing their questioning, their interrogation, their investigation, like police do. Basically, when police spoke to Kassandra's friends and family members, one of the people they spoke to was Kassandra's best friend, Alexandra, the one she was supposed to be hanging out with the day that she disappeared. And when police spoke to her, she told them that Kassanndra sort of had a little bit of a secret. Not like a big secret, she wasn't keeping it from everyone, but about a month before she went missing, she had confided in Alexandra something. Alexandra had opened her phone one day to just see a photo of a positive pregnancy test, with her saying, Kassanndra saying, she believed she may be pregnant. And the day that Kassanndra went missing, you know how the two were supposed to hang out? Well, they were going to be going to Kassandra's first ultrasound appointment. So in learning this, police are like, we should probably look into who the father of this, future baby may be, because perhaps there's a chance that he isn't super stoked about the idea of being a papa. Now, it turns out Marie, Kassandra's mother, did know that Kassanndra was pregnant, but didn't know who the father was. She said her and Kassanndra kind of talked about it a little bit, and basically she just said to her, like, it was some guy that she met online. They went on a few dates, but they weren't, like, seeing each other anymore, that he didn't even live in the area. She just basically said, like, we went on a couple of dates, and oops, baby. So with this, police had to look into, like, her dating history, right? See who she may have met up with, who she may have been dating, who lived out in a different area. And she was on all the dating apps, so they had to look through all this. She was on, like, Tinder, the other apps. I don't really know the apps. Match? Is that an app? Christian Mingle? I don't know the apps. So they start looking through those apps. Because, you know, whatever. They look through whatever apps they'd be looking through. And they're also talking to Kassandra's friends and family to see who they knew of that she had dated or who she was in contact with. And one name kept coming up over and over. And this was a man named Colin Patrick Dudley. Apparently, Colin and Kassanndra had met when they were both shadow casting for Rocky Horror back in 2006. An 18-year-old Kassanndra played Janet, and a 22-year-old Colin played Dr. Scott, while also running the tech and sort of being, like, in charge of the cast. Colin and Kassanndra dated a couple of months before splitting, and it didn't seem like there was any bad blood. The two stayed friends. Colin even went on to get a new girlfriend. He started dating another girl from the shadow cast named Rebecca, and the two were serious. They, like, had a house together and everything, so there didn't seem to be any bad blood. So, again, they dated in 2006, and though they had been friends when they first broke up, as time went on, because this was years ago, what, 14 years ago at this point, because this happened in 2020, they weren't, like, friends the whole time. They were kind of cordial and had lost touch. They both, like, grew in different directions because, like, 18 and 22-year-olds changed quite a bit in the next decade, right? But they had sort of rekindled their friendship in 2014 after Kassanndra learned that Colin's father had died. Kassandra's mother, Marie, said that though Colin had been one of Kassandra's more serious boyfriends at the time, when they reconnected, they were just friends. She said Kassanndra had gotten kind of lonely, especially during quarantine, so they just sort of reconnected, but it wasn't serious. Which was something that, truthfully, she was kind of happy about, because when her daughter and he had dated, Kassanndra kind of told her mom, like, what a jerk Colin had been, so she didn't want her daughter to be romantically linked to this guy anyway. As far as Marie knew, Kassanndra and Colin were just buds, right? They would go to movies, they'd get a bite to eat, but it was totally platonic because he had a girlfriend and they had been together like 14 years by this time. But, Shyamalan twist, this wasn't true. Not that he didn't have a girlfriend, he did, but despite having a girlfriend, once he and Kassanndra reconnected, they found that feelings were still there and things quickly went from friendship to something more, and it definitely was not platonic, and Kassanndra even believed, or knew rather, that the baby she was carrying was Colin's child. And she was excited about it. She wasn't stressed about it. She was excited about the idea of being a mom, about putting together a little baby registry and planning for her baby shower, and had even started picking out names. But she hadn't told Colin yet, and she hadn't decided if she wanted to tell Colin because, you know, he did have a girlfriend and he had this whole other life and had expressed to her, and it was pretty common knowledge with him and those who knew him, that he didn't want to be a father and had a bit of an anger problem. So it was just kind of messy. It's all around messy, obviously. But despite this, shortly before Kassanndra was killed, she decided she was going to tell Colin. And reportedly, the conversation went better than expected. She told Alexandra that she told him that she was pregnant, the baby was his, and that he was fine with it. He was understanding even, and said that the two could get together and kind of talk logistics. And Kassandra's best friend Alexandra said of this, quote, she told him that he didn't have to be involved. She just thought he had the right to know. She told him that he could give up parental rights and she wouldn't ask him for child support. So with this information, police obviously want to talk to Colin. So they go to his house and they don't make him seem like he's a suspect right off the bat or like a person of interest. They're just like, hey, Kassandra's missing. We're talking to everybody who knew her to see if anybody knows what could have happened or where she may be, people she's talked to, etc., etc. So they start with asking him kind of lowball questions, like how they met, you know, things like that. And he tells them how they met, sort of how their relationship played out. But he didn't offer up any information about how they were currently, about them being intimate or being friends or anything like that. So police are finally like, okay, so here's the thing. At the time that Kassanndra went missing, she was 10 weeks pregnant. And people are telling us that the baby is yours, ? And he's like, what, me? No, bitch, I would Never. And he says that he's in a relationship and that his relationship is his #1 priority and that he would do nothing to jeopardize that. He even doubled down so hard and was like, on top of that, in addition to that, actually speaking, I don't even know her at all anymore. I haven't even seen or spoken to her at all since we broke up in 2006. He's like, I saw her this one time at Tacoma Mall, but like not anything else. No calls, no texts, no Facebook messages, nothing. I don't know the woman. So when police left, they obviously didn't believe him. They were like, this guy is a liar. And it wasn't going to be difficult for them to prove just how honestly dumb this guy was. I'm gonna call it how I sees it. he's just dumb. So Kassandra's mom had Kassandra's phone, and she had been kind of looking over the phone records. Or no, she didn't have her phone. So basically, here's what had happened. Though they didn't have Kassandra's phone because, you know, it had been underwater and all that jazz, they did have her phone records, or her mom did. And her mom had been combing through the records to just kind of see if anything stuck out. And she did notice that there was this one number that just kept showing up over and over. But she didn't know who the number belonged to. It didn't have, like, a name listed with it. But Kassanndra had been talking to this person for months. It went back a long time. And Kassanndra had even talked to this person the day she went missing. Now, even though Marie didn't know who this phone number belonged to, police did, because they took one look at it and they're like, oh, like that's homeboy Colin's number. They're like, oh, so we should probably look through Colin's phone now because we know for sure they've been talking. And that wasn't a problem because they had Colin's phone, because when the investigator was interviewing him, they took it because they had a warrant. Now, when they looked in his phone, they didn't find a contact in his phone for Kassanndra. But that doesn't mean that her number wasn't in his phone, because they searched the number and they found that it was in his phone, but under a different name. And it was under the name of Velma. And this immediately stuck out a bit because Marie told police that Kassanndra had dressed up as Velma from Scooby-Doo. By the way, Velma, like, I don't know her last name. Orange sweater, glasses, hot, but in like a dorky way. Velma. Kassanndra had dressed up as Velma for Halloween. And in learning this, it stuck out to police because police were like, huh, that's very interesting. Because when we were looking through Colin's phone, looking at his photos, there was a photo of a woman in an orange turtleneck, like covering her face so they couldn't see who it was. But the photo was taken in 2018. So 2 years before Kassanndra went missing. And they look at this photo, and they look at the photo of Kassanndra dressed up as Velma, and they realize it's the same sweater. This is a photo of Kassanndra from 2018, even though he hasn't seen her since 2006. Make it make sense? Colin. Dudley. That's my cat's name. Not Colin Dudley, just Dudley. Now, police did confront Colin with this information. They're like, hey, you're a liar. And they gave him some other, you know, evidence they had against him. And in learning that they knew that he was lying, like, he clammed up. He denied everything and just stopped answering questions altogether. So this was looking good for police. And even though they didn't have Kassandra's phone, because again, it had been underwater, they did have her phone records and they had his phone. So with this, they were able to kind of like create a map of where they had been and when. And they were able to actually track Kassandra's phone to the location where her car was abandoned, right? But they wanted to confirm that the person who abandoned the car, that the person who abandoned the car there was Colin. Because obviously they thought it was, because when they looked at his stupid silhouette in the video, they were like, that looks like Colin, but they needed to kind of prove it. Lucky for them, a rail system was nearby, like, it's not a train, like a light rail, like they have in, like, San Francisco. You know what I'm talking about? So they had one of those that was right by, and they were like, I bet that thing has a camera. So they reached out to, like, the management of the light rail system to see if they had a camera so they could see if Kassandra's car was on the video. And they get the video and they look at it, and bingo, there her car is. In addition to that, through the camera, like the video was moving because it's a light rail, obviously, so it's moving, but they're able to see the man in the black hat walking away from her car in this video as well. And from there, they were able to find another camera that was across the street, because you remember he crossed the street, and this camera was clearer and not in motion, and it showed this guy up closer and more clearly, but they still couldn't tell that it was him. So they see this guy, he crosses the street, dressed how he was, the way I described him, in the all black with the gloves and all that shit, and he goes and sits at what looks like a bus stop, but now that I'm thinking about it and saying it out loud, it's probably the like stop for the light rail system, because that makes a lot more sense. He sits there for about 5 minutes before getting up and leaving, and they see in the video, since it's a clearer footage, that his face is like wrapped in a mask, and then it's hidden further with that hat, which when I tell you, this guy is so stupid, because this hat, okay, the hat was like his thing. He had been wearing this hat or hats that were like it for years, even going back to when he dated Kassanndra in 2006. He was so dedicated to the hat life that he would have people call him Hat or Hat Man. Dead ass. He would have people call him Hat Man, and when he would wear the hat, he would go into this character as Hat Man, and he modeled this character that he would act as the main character from A Clockwork Orange. Anyways, the man in the hat, Hat Man if you will, walks, and they can see him walking, and they follow him with cameras until he walks into the Tacoma Dome parking garage. So, police speak to the Tacoma Dome people to see if they may have surveillance footage as well. And guess what? They do. So police are able to watch this guy go into the parking garage, walk to a truck, get into the truck, and drive away in the truck. And in the footage, you see a nice little shot of the license plate. And Shyamalan twist, it wasn't Colin's truck. Just kidding, it absolutely was. So with that, 6 days after Kassanndra vanished, a SWAT team along with the FBI rained down on the home that Colin shared with Rebecca that was located on K Street in Tacoma. Because at this point, though it's not looking good, they aren't sure if Kassanndra is dead. They're like, maybe she's tied up and being held hostage. Maybe she's in that house. Now, Colin was detained while this search took place, and they took his DNA and fingerprints at that time. But despite all their searching, there was no sign of Kassanndra. They did, however, take some evidence from his house, though, which included the Chevy Colorado truck that he drove and a black fedora that matched the black fedora that the figure was seen wearing in the surveillance footage. And when they searched his basement, they found several areas where there appeared to be blood that had been cleaned up. Now, in addition to that luminol lighting up like a Christmas tree, they also had these cadaver dogs that were down in the basement, and they showed particular interest in the basement, those very good boys, and they showed specific interest in a brown couch that was in the basement. So that already looks suspicious, and then you add the fact that for whatever reason, Colin also deleted these text messages. So they definitely are like, you're being real weird. That's some weird behavior from an innocent person, one may say. So they were able to tell from phone records that both phones actually stayed in the same place for 2 hours after she got there, and they believe that is the time in which Colin murdered Kassanndra. Another thing they were able to learn from the phone records is that at about an hour and a half after Kassanndra showed up at his house, he called his security company. It was ADT, the security company. Then he reached out to his wife or girlfriend. She's reported as both in different, depending on what source you look into. But his woman, the woman he shared his home with, he reached out to her and was like, you know what? I don't want you to freak out. The power is out, okay? So don't freak out if the security cameras aren't working. Shortly after that, just before noon, Colin's cell phone was turned off, but Kassandra's never was, and I don't know if this was an oversight on his part. Investigators think it was. I think it could also have been intentional because her phone is seen traveling from his home to the light rail station where her car was abandoned. So perhaps he's wanting people to think that she drove there, got on like bus? On a light rail, and then went off on her own, not knowing that there were cameras literally everywhere that would have caught him. But either way, his phone's off, her phone's on. Her phone goes to the light rail station, and he's like, cool, my phone's off. They're not going to see me, except they did. Cameras showed Colin's truck leaving the area of Owens Beach at about 1 p.m., which is incidentally where Kassandra's phone was found thrown into the water. So that doesn't look good. Then 45 minutes goes by, and his phone turns back on. But by this time, he is back at his house. So he turns off his phone, goes and does all this shit, goes back home, turns his phone on like he never left. Once back home, he texted his lady and let her know, hey, the cameras are back on, the power's back on, everything is okey-KB. Everything's good here, ma'am. And then he reached out to his boss, asking his boss questions, telling him that he was working on his basement and wanted to ask him some stuff about sealant, which is used to fill in cracks and shit like that. So at this point, police are feeling pretty confident that they know what happened to Kassanndra. But the problem is they don't have a body. They, you know, found her phone, but her body wasn't discovered in the area where her phone was disposed of. So they figured that they needed to figure out where that may be, because obviously it's going to make a much stronger case if you have a body, because then you can prove that a murder has even been committed. So they're like, okay, we need to figure out where Colin went with his truck. Since we can't track his phone, maybe we could look into his truck and see where that went, so we could figure out where Kassanndra may be. And they were lucky because, you know, they had confiscated or taken his phone as his truck as evidence, so they were able to get a search warrant so that they could search his little black box, not the little black box, his black box. I was thinking of like little black phone or little black book. You know what I'm talking about, right? They get the black box out of his truck so that they can look over the data and see where he may have gone after Kassanndra went to his house. So once they were able to look over the information that they got from the black box, they were able to find that the timeline they had put together just from like the phone records and their noggins was correct. They had gotten all of that right. Then they were able to see that when Colin had given them a recount of his day, when Kassanndra went missing and the following days, etc., he had left an important piece of information out, but not from the day she went missing, from the day after. So this would have been the 26th. That means that he kept her body in his house overnight, where he slept, where he ate, where he slept next to his woman. He kept her there overnight. They were able to tell from the truck's black box that the next day, the 26th, at about 6 a.m., he drove his truck to a wooded area, the remote wooded ravine near the Chambers Bay treatment plant. So, on September 22nd, 2020, about a month after Kassanndra went missing, law enforcement headed over to this wooded ravine, this area where Colin's truck had traveled the day after Kassanndra went missing. This was about 8 miles from Colin's home, and ground searches began. Now, it didn't take them long to find something, though, because shortly thereafter, at about 2 p.m., they looked over a steep hillside, and about halfway down, like 100 yards down, they saw a trash can. There was like a trash bag sticking out of it. The trash can was covered in ropes, and they could see blood. Now, because it was such a steep hillside, search and rescue team members and the Tacoma Police Department had to operate a high-angle rope to recover the trash can. But even before getting to the can, they knew that they had a body, but of course wanted to confirm visually, if possible, that it was Kassanndra. Now, just looking at her face to identify her would be hard, because again, she went missing in August. It's now September. She's been out in the heat outside for a month. This body presumably had been out in the heat for a month. So just looking at her would not be like the sight that you would want to see. But they knew Kassanndra had a tattoo, and they could see that this body had a tattoo. So one of the techs took a photo of this tattoo that was on the body and ran it over to investigators to show them, and they were able to confirm pretty instantly that this body was that of Kassanndra. And this tattoo, by the way, was the one I told you about in the beginning. The one that she had that said, quote, "We don't stop playing because we grow up. We grow up because we stop playing." And so she was visually identified that way, and then, you know, officially identified through dental records. So the lead investigator now had to call Marie, and he was very unexcited to make this phone call, as I'm sure you can imagine. And when he called, the very first question that she asked, because he called and he's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you about Kassanndra." And she said, like, "Is she okay?" And he said that he was so sorry, but no, she wasn't. And Marie lost it. And I guess she screamed, and it was such an intense scream that as soon as Rob heard it, he knew that his twin sister had been found dead. That night, 37-year-old Colin Dudley was arrested, and he was charged with the first-degree murder of Kassanndra. And of course, he pled not guilty. Now, I feel like some of you will wonder about this, but he was only given one first-degree murder charge. But this charge came with special enhancements, I believe is the phrasing, due to the fact that Kassanndra was pregnant. And because of this, though, and probably just in general they would have done this, but I'm sure the special enhancement didn't help, the defense ended up trying to, like, say that Kassanndra wasn't pregnant, or that there was no proof that she was pregnant, because at the time she was recovered, she was so decomposed that you couldn't tell at that point that she was. But her family was adamant that she was pregnant, that she had been pregnant for 3 months, and medical records did back it up. Anyways, Colin was held on a $2 million bond, and the judge ordered that if he was able to make bail, his travel would be restricted, and he'd be ordered not to have any weapons or possess any, like, guns, which is the same as weapons, so I don't know why the distinction, but here we find ourselves. And speaking of his bail, by the way, after he was arrested and after his bail was set, his house went up for sale. The house where Kassanndra was killed and where his girlfriend still lived. And this stressed Kassandra's family out. The house was being listed for $470,000 and the home was said to have a fresh paint job and new flooring. The quote 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house was also said to be in a great location, and the basement where Kassanndra was believed to be murdered was listed as a, quote, large hobby or entertainment room. Now, Kassandra's family wasn't worried because they didn't want somebody to buy this house. They didn't really care one way or another if somebody bought the house. They were more concerned with who the person buying the house would be supporting financially in doing so, because they were worried he'd make bail. And then if he did make bail, they were worried about whether or not they'd be safe. They were worried about whether or not he would just, like, dip and leave. But his attorney came out and made a statement saying that the sale of the house had nothing to do with his bail, that he wasn't even going to try to make bail. But her family was like, that's suspicious. And truthfully, I don't know if the house was ever sold. I don't think he ever got out on bail, so it didn't end up mattering. But it mattered very much in the moment. After Colin's arrest, a memorial was erected across the street from where her body was recovered, and just hours after his arrest, a candlelit vigil was held for Kassanndra outside of Colin's home. The vigil was organized by Kassandra's twin brother Robert and their mother, obviously, Marie, and family, friends, and complete strangers came to gather outside of Colin's home. That's where they had this vigil, was outside Colin's home, and they had a 20-minute moment of silence to honor Kassanndra, followed by her friends and family talking about her and remembering her. Her best friend Alexandra, who had just been so excited for Kassanndra, excited about planning things, about putting together a nursery, had already started throwing her a baby shower. She said that she wants Kassanndra to be remembered as the person she was and not just for the headlines about her. And she said specifically of her friend, quote, "Some people are firecrackers. She was a wildfire. When you read about this and hear about this, that's who you're hearing about. A person with a lot of dreams. She deserved to see her baby grow up. She deserved to get dressed up and go swing dancing. She's a light, like a comet. Anytime someone snuffs out somebody like that, everybody suffers, whether you knew her or not." Her brother Rob said that she was so kind and outgoing and was so looking forward to becoming a mom, and said that she just didn't deserve this, that nobody deserves this. And that's the truth, man. She didn't deserve this, right? She deserved to have a future and to become a mother and to raise her baby. She didn't deserve to be murdered and thrown into like a ravine. And her mom, man, her mom said that Kassanndra had so many plans for her and for her baby. She wanted to get all Mr. Rogers stuff and old Sesame Street stuff and old Disney stuff, and wanted like a gentle and magical life for her baby, and wanted to teach them to believe in a thing and believe in it all the way, and would give them the courage to be totally and uniquely themselves. And her mom just said that like Kassanndra would have been such a good mom. On October 25th, 2020, her family had a memorial service for her, which they called a celebration of life. And everybody was asked to come in, quote, fancy dress, as that's what Kassanndra would have wanted. And they were encouraged to dress in like retro or vintage clothing from the 20s to the 80s was basically the vibe that they were given. And they were told that they could also get a little, unique with their outfits, making them inspired by Halloween or Christmas, because those were Kassandra's two favorite holidays. And then at her service, everyone was offered the option to write a message to Kassanndra on a ribbon, which would then be woven into her casket and buried with her, which I just thought was like a very sweet and sad thing. But now let's move on to things that are not quite as sweet, definitely not as sweet, and not really sad as much as they are maddening, but also sad, but also maddening. What was super messed up here is, despite the strong case that I've just told you about, the prosecution wanted to make a deal with Colin. And this was very shocking to her mother, her brother, her friends, all the people who loved her. They had no words. This was clearly very premeditated. It was the premeditated ambush murder of a pregnant woman. And now the prosecution wanted to make a deal with this monster. And people were pissed. Kassanndra, according to her friend Alexandra, was an optimist. She was so happy and so hopeful, and Alexandra believes that that's what led to her death, that she was hopeful when she entered Colin's home that day, hopeful about what could happen, hopeful about the conversation they were going to have about their baby. And that makes the situation all the more sad because he brutalized her. During her autopsy, they found that she had been stabbed and had several large fractures to her skull. Her cause of death was listed as blunt force trauma, and they believe it happened in that basement based on the blood that was on the floor, the walls, a stainless steel table, and the laundry room sink. And they think he killed her and then kept her there overnight and then cleaned the basement meticulously and then dumped her body the next day. And it's crazy because all of this happened in the house that he shared with his girlfriend, and she was there for part of this, but reportedly had no idea. Police came out and said there was no evidence at all that she knew about it, was involved in any way. All she knew that was relevant at all was that she knew that Colin did not want a baby. Apparently this guy was adamant about never having a child, and even said, this is going to piss some people off, this pissed me off, I'm going to say, even said that if anyone he slept with was ever to get pregnant, which, bro, get a vasectomy. That's on you. I'm just going to say it. You can prevent that with a vasectomy. But moving on. He said if he was to ever get someone pregnant, or somebody was ever to get pregnant from him, that he would fight to get full custody out of spite, then raise this baby to hate women, to punish the mother for having the audacity to get pregnant. Yeah, that. I was like, let me just, where's my water? I'm heated. And my water's gone. But despite this, despite all of this, police are like, I don't know if the case is strong enough. It's just circumstantial. It's strong circumstantial, but it's just circumstantial. They were worried because they didn't have a smoking gun. No murder weapon, no eyewitness, no confession, just the digital data that showed where he'd been and what he'd been doing. They just weren't sure it was enough. And it's very frustrating because, especially because there was such that presence of blood in his basement. But for those who are wondering about that, it had been cleaned so effectively that they weren't able to conclusively link it to Kassanndra. So it took several months, but the plea deal was negotiated against Kassandra's family's wishes. And with this deal, Colin would plead guilty to first-degree murder, and he would waive his right to appeal. And in exchange for this, he was given 320 months, or just over 26 years in prison. As I am sure you can imagine, Kassandra's family was furious. They didn't feel like 26 years was enough, right? And they wanted to go to trial. They believed they deserved to go to trial for this. This was the planned murder of a pregnant woman, and they said Kassanndra deserved a trial. They wanted him to have to go there and to have to hear all the details laid out so everyone can see what a monster he was. They told the judge they wanted a criminal trial. They said that they still had so many unanswered questions about Kassandra's death and wanted the full truth to be brought to light with a trial. And Marie said that this is what Kassanndra would have wanted. She wanted a trial, and that by allowing him to make this plea deal, they were allowing Kassandra's murderer to basically choose his own punishment, which I had never thought about plea deals in that way. But once I did, I was like, damn, that is what that is. And it wasn't just Kassandra's family that was upset about this either. There were friends of Colin's that spoke out against him. He had this one friend named Steve who he used to be close with. He would often go to Colin and Rebecca's house and they would play Dungeons and Dragons, which totally checks. I hadn't really thought about it before, but like a Rocky Horror kid would absolutely be a Dungeons and Dragons kid. Now, I wasn't a Dungeons and Dragons kid, but I could see that being true. But basically, Steve was there all the time. They'd go down into the basement and they'd play D&D. And that was like the game zone, right? They'd play and they'd hang out, and Colin would cook. It was supposedly a great cook. It was like a good time. And he said he believed that Colin was a good guy, the type of guy who wouldn't hesitate to open his heart to you or even his wallet to you if you were ever in a jam. Well, after Colin was convicted, he felt very different. He felt angry and he felt betrayed, and he even took it upon himself to write a letter to the judge saying that Colin should get a longer sentence, that 26 years was not enough, and that Colin would not learn from this. And this is somebody who was his friend who knew him well. And that's very scary, especially considering the fact that Colin, if he's on his best behavior, could be out as early as 2044, and he would just be in his 60s. Now, I do know that Kassandra's family has filed a wrongful death suit against Colin. It was scheduled to go to trial, I believe, in August of 2023, but I didn't see that it happened or what the outcome was. There was no reporting on that, but that's one step that they're taking to help, you know, to fight for Kassanndra in like a legal sense. Kassandra's family also thinks that there should be a law in Washington where if you knowingly murder a pregnant person, you're automatically given life in prison with no possibility of parole, and that you should have to die in jail. They just don't think anyone should have to suffer like they have suffered, and I didn't see what steps they're actually taking towards making this a reality, but it is an idea that they have in like Kassandra's memory. I know that they were also trying to have a memorial bench put up in Kassandra's honor. It would have been next to a rose garden. I didn't see if this actually happened, but I did see that their GoFundMe for this is still active. So I will make sure to link it down below in case anybody, you know, has it in them to donate towards that cause. And if I forget to put the GoFundMe link, please remind me, because again, I tend to always forget that and I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard I try. Oh man, and speaking of tributes to Kassanndra, it's very sweet, but you remember that store, the memorabilia store that that Kassanndra and her brother wanted to open together? He opened it, and in the window of the store there's a giant photo of Kassanndra, and then there are photos of her scattered throughout the store as well, so it can be a place where she's remembered. And the store isn't very far from where Kassanndra was buried either, so it's easy for him and his mother to go over to, you know, clean off her grave, to leave flowers, and to just say hi to her. Marie just misses her daughter, man. She said she had this energy about her. She always had something up her sleeve. She was always playing little pranks or making little surprises for her mom. And that's what she misses most, is just like her happy presence. And that's what her mom thinks about a lot. And she thinks a lot about what could have been if Kassanndra had been able to live and had gone on to have her baby, and what type of mom she would be. And she says that it's just heartbreaking because she had all of these sweet plans that never got to be realized. And that's because Colin murdered her child. He is in jail, but Kassandra's gone forever. And Marie said specifically of this, and I quote, "People say when you get to this point, you feel closure. I don't. Closure would be her coming home. That's never going to happen." And with that, my friends, is the story of the murder of Kassanndra Cantrell. I hope that my telling of this was informative, and I hope I gave you every bit of information you would want when looking into this case. And of course, I just want to thank you for hanging out and remembering Kassanndra with me today. Now, considering everything I told you throughout this video, I want to revisit the question of the day. I have like a couple now, and they are as follows. 1. Do you think that Colin getting 26 years was justice for Kassanndra? Do you think that, this is 2, do you think that the prosecution should have honored Kassandra's family's wishes and given them a trial? Do you think he could have and should have gotten more time if they had? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, because it is frustrating. It's similar to, what was that case that we just covered? What is that girl's name? Wait. Sydney Powell, where the family didn't want Sydney to go to trial, but Sydney killed her mother, so it was a little bit of a gray area. It reminds me of that, in that the family didn't want a trial, but it's a little bit separate because the killer is also completely separate, and it's the victim's family who's asking for this. I don't know, it's just a little bit weird. I'm curious as to what you guys would think, so let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. If you haven't already, please don't forget to leave me a comment down below with whatever case you'd like to see me cover in the future. As you know, I have a long list of cases. Whenever you leave a suggestion, I put it on my list. So if I cover it, I can give you a shout out like I did today. I love looking into the cases you guys suggest, because they're often cases I haven't heard of or cases that need more coverage. And I know you're filled with great ideas and great taste. Otherwise, you would not be here. If you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack. Become one of us. One of us. One of us. One of us. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below, along with a link to my membership and a link to my merch store. I want to say one last thank you to Dossier for partnering with me on today's video. It's sponsors like Dossier that make it possible for me to put out videos as consistently as I do. And a big thank you to you guys for always being so supportive of all my sponsors. You rock. Don't ever change. And now with all that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video.